Hello, my name is the Jordan, your coach of the Virginia Vikavolt, and this is Season 5 of the VBL-S VGC Draft League. We just drafted a week or so ago, and I'm doing power rankings for all 16 teams. VBL-S is the best draft league with the kindest and most supportive coaches, the very, very strong competitive roster that gets a little bit stronger every single season. And in Season 5, we're doing the Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl format. So the first 4 seasons, all 8 generations of Mons available and their fancy latest tools. But this time around, only the first 4 generations and Mons that gained access to new tools in Gens 5 through 8. Sometimes they don't even have them. Electroweb, not even in the game. High horsepower, basically nobody's got it. So all of a sudden, Mons that were like low tiers are like mid tiers or like pretty good. And Tangrowth goes around 1, and there's just a lot less depth where you have to make do with some of the real weak niche Mons. So it's going to be a very interesting format. I think most coaches will probably not want to do this after this season, but at the very least, this season will produce a lot of interesting results. So I'm doing power rankings. I'm talking about these teams from a holistic perspective. I have this rough rubric here for like offensive win cons, defensive win cons. A lot of defense is like disruption because you don't have to deal with Dynamax in this format, but you have to disrupt their setup or the things that they're trying to do. Speed control, because whatever you're trying to do, if you can do it first, it's a lot more effective, and if you can do it first throughout the game. So type synergy is just having Mons that can hit you in a lot of different ways, that can take a lot of different kinds of attacks, that have some good balance. And then X Factor are all the things that I really couldn't fit into these first 4 metrics, which is holistic, right? How does this team come together to produce win cons? And that's more what I want to talk about. I can see the pathway where this thing boosts itself while this thing protects it, and then you win the game. We shall see with each team. Very, very tough to rank this time around because this is a less familiar format. Mons that were not so good are all of a sudden a lot better. And so with this roster, I have to put some really excellent coaches in the bottom half. So please do not take it personally. I'm ranking the teams, not the coaches. But I want to share the first 8 teams in this video and the top 8 in the next video, but I want to start on a more positive note, not with the team I ranked 16 out of 16, but with Samax's team, who I think did really well, and that a lot of the teams in this video can look to Samax's team for how to build a defensive backbone, build good, to collect good disruption tools, and to support their key attackers. So Samax and the New York Ninetales, they did a bit of a theme draft where he spun a wheel after each pick, and whatever stat out of the 6 he rolled, that's the Mon he had to pick, or he had to pick a Mon with that as its highest stat. So Samax he had a lot of options when it was his pick, but he couldn't make any kind of long-term plan, right? If he wanted a fast Mon, he had to hope that he drew speed on the wheel. So given those constraints, I think Samax did an excellent job here. So Gyarados was his second pick, first pick Tangrowth, and I can already see how much excellent support there is for Gyarados as the strongest marquee attacker here, biggest attack stat. I guess Magnezone's a little bit stronger, but Gyarados is the most threatening, right? Because after a Dragon Dance, it is faster than almost everything, and it is strong enough to take one-hit KOs. So how do you make Gyarados as good as it can be? You get it Lightning Rod, so its quadruple weakness to electric is protected. It's redirected into Manectric. You've got electric immunities in Donphan, electric resistances, including the redirector, so the Thunderbolt's coming in, but Tangrowth just redirects it onto itself. Redirection is really good for Gyarados, so it can set up that Dragon Dance. And you have Rock Resist too, so Gyarados' only other weakness is Rock, but you've got resistances in Hitmonchan, Magnezone, and Donphan can all safely switch into Rock moves. So Gyarados can just pivot around and do the Intimidate game if it wants to, or it can sweep, so I think it's in a really good spot here. Also, I want to say that Donphan as an attacker really well supported because you have 3 ground immunities, and so most ground moves in this game are just Earthquake. You need to be able to dodge Earthquakes, and so luckily Donphan can Earthquake no problem next to Uxie or Gyarados, or Coughing if it's Levitate. It can even Earthquake next to Tangrowth because it resists as well. So good support of these key attackers, and a lot of disruption in general. Manetric is a pretty disruptive mon. I like the Scarf switcheroo set. It's got T-Wave. Lopunny's got Fake Out, T-Wave, switcheroo. Uxie's got a lot of weird support moves. Hitmonchan, Fake Out, and Volbeat with the Prankster. So it can go before anybody else, and it can T-Wave to do speed control, or it can Sunny Day and give Tangrowth more speed with its Chlorophyll. So a lot of disruption tools, and Samax and I tend to build around defensive mons that can survive on their own and good disruption, and so we're less offensively oriented. But I've realized in my draft league history that this approach has some limits, is that you need to at least threaten a lot of aggressive potential, otherwise your team can be exploited in a number of ways. And so that's where I think this team falters a little bit. It has setup, it has ways to become offensively very scary, right? So Gyarados, Dragon Dance, but also Wall Rain, Belly Drum, or Swords Dance. Does Tangrowth also get Swords Dance? Yes, for some reason this lump of hair has a Swords Dance. But there are some other, like Calm Mind Uxie, but none of these guys for the most part are taking Okos from turn 1. So if I'm against the New York Ninetales, I can kind of get my plan off on turn 1 with no fear, right? I mean, they can fake me out, but the point is Gyarados is the only mon that maybe threatens an Oko on turn 1, or Magnezone. But if you can't threaten, then they don't have to protect or switch or play defensively, and they can set up their Tailwind or do their Swords Dances of their own. So that having just one really, really strong and fast attack stat would help expand your threat bubble, the range of things that you could be doing on turn 1s that is scary. And this team is not terribly fast either. 105 is its fastest mon, so I think you do need to use your Fake Outs and to maybe use Choice Scarfs to exert more immediate pressure. But the other things that I think are not as strong about this team are the speed control, which is limited to T-Wave and Uxie. There is no Icy Wind. Icy Wind is a lot more limited in this format. There's no Quash, no Tailwind. Electroweb is gone from this format. And Bulldoze, you do have good support for Bulldoze because you have mons that dodge it, and so it can kind of provide a speed control, but I haven't been able to use it as speed control that often. So if you're not that fast and you don't have that many tools to become faster, then this team could be threatened by hyper offense. Also, the last thing is all of these tech pieces, the supportive options. If you taunt the Uxie, nothing it can do is that threatening. If you taunt the Volbeat, same situation for coughing. Tangrowth's most scary tools are Rage Powder and Sleep Powder, so you can just taunt that, and it can't do those things. Same with Lopunny. So big taunt bait here. Really has to protect his mons from getting taunted, has to use a mental herb. I would say just a little bit more straightforward offense would be good for this team. But given the constraints and the protection of the key attackers, I think this is a pretty solid team. Now we'll go to 16. Mono and the Wedgehurst Whimsicots has a lot of sauce, but where I'd say this team falters is all sauce, no meat, right? There's a lot of tech pieces, even more than Samax's. The first pick was Murkrow, which shouldn't be a first round pick in my opinion, but it has a lot of cool moves. It's pretty unique in that it has Prankster Priority, and it has Quash, Tailwind, and Perish Song, and some other moves that it can go with the speed of Priority. So it's a good framing for a team that just needs a boost of speed and can hit you in a lot of different ways. But how does this team hit you? Like, Frostlass is mainly a disruption piece. Duskull, Parasect, Tropius, Hitmontop is mainly support. The only offensive stats over 100 on this entire team are Aggron, Rhyperior, and Rotom with just 105. And so all of the offense mainly coming from these three pieces, and all three of them are weak to water. So that's pretty concerning, I would say, right? I can throw water at this team with no fear. Where are my water resistances? Dry Skin, Redirection, Parasect. So that's a cool mono for having that as your redirection. But I think I'm likely throwing spread moves out because I want to beat the Rotom through redirection. And so it wouldn't affect Parasect, but I'm still dealing with the Rotom, Aggron, and Rhyperior very effectively. Same thing with Earthquakes, right? You can try to redirect, but Rhyperior and Aggron still taking a ton of damage from Earthquakes, and Rotom from Rock Slides. All three of these, your entire fast mode hurt by Rock Slides. So I talk about type synergy as one of the weaker points of this team, but the protection of your key attackers is really lacking. Hitmontop is an excellent Pokemon, excellent pick, but there's just a limit to how much it can do. It itself is not that bulky. I mean, it has Intimidate, but I think it will be tough for this team to defend itself given its weak points. So can you lift these speeds? Speed control is the last thing. There are some speed options, right? Prankster Tailwind, Fast Icy Wind, that is some good speed control options. However, can you really win the fast mode war with Rhyperior and Aggron even if you help out their speed? They're just not very fast. And setting up Trick Room seems, I mean, he's got 2 Tailwind setters. That's good. Or Trick Room setters. But neither of them are that bulky, both weak to Dark, as well as some other things on this team. So if you can set up the Trick Room, maybe Aggron and Rhyperior can sweep. But the thing is, they're also not that slow. So like, they're going to get outflanked by better Trick Room modes. So it's just very difficult to see how this team is supposed to power through, because it needs speed control, but it might need to play some tricky games to get speed control. But even still, if the opponent can survive one hit, Rhyperior is not going to survive any grass move. Aggron's not going to survive any fighting move, and so just these like a lot of redundancy between these key attackers is, I think, an issue for this team to work out. If they can find a replacement for one of these two, I think it would really help, right? Mono City's building around Clamperl, which is very cool. So one thing not shown in the stats is that Clamperl has a unique item that doubles its offense, so that's kind of cool. However, if I'm already bringing a grass move to destroy the Rhyperior, then I can beat the Clamperl. Clamperl is not living a hit. So it's just a relative frailty, relatively common weak points. Those are the kind of things that I think a couple of transactions can really bring this team a lot stronger, because they have so much sauce. I love the style of Hitmontop and Frostlass and Murkrow, and building around Clamperl and having a good Trick Room mode. There's lots of good potential here. And then if there's a couple of things left on the waivers, this format doesn't leave you a ton of options, but this team could get a lot better. Next is Tom and the Crocodile Dundee. I like how this draft started a lot, and I think it faltered in the second half, but when you start with Azumarill Pachirisu, Azumarill extremely strong with the huge power boost, and Pachirisu to redirect attacks while Azumarill can belly drum to quadruple its attack even further, then Azumarill is taking Okos with priority Aqua Jet all day. It's a very, very strong combination, especially because you would want to bring electric moves to beat Azumarill. Pachirisu redirects it and absorbs it, so that's kind of cool. It could also, the Pachirisu can absorb Zapdos discharges. The Flygon can absorb a discharge, so we have a Disquake combo here, which I like. So Flygon can Earthquake and Zapdos is immune. Zapdos can Disquake, or can discharge while Flygon's immune. That's a good start. And then where this team tried to fill itself out, I don't see a lot of use for a lot of these mons. And so there could be some things I'm missing. There probably is, but just a limit to the things I don't see are speed control. Definitely missing in how we can go fast and how we can make ourselves faster. I like that things start fast. That's really, really good. It's better than the teams I've talked about so far. But how are they speeding themselves up if the opponent is doing the same? So I don't see Icy Wind, Quash, Tailwind, and the only Trick Room setter I see is an incredibly frail on 40-30 defenses here. Kadabra cannot be your only Trick Room setter. It will not be able to set Trick Room reliably, especially when I know that I can just bring an Ice attack to beat the entire fast mode, right? Beat the entire fast mode with an Ice attack, and then bring a Dark coverage move, and I beat Kadabra. So I'm going faster than you, and you can't reverse speeds because you need Kadabra to do so, and I'll just bring a counter to Kadabra. That's the thing that concerns me a lot. A second Trick Room setter, even it can be another frail Trick Room setter, just a different one with different weaknesses would be helpful. Or if a second Trick Room setter often will also open up Kadabra to do offense, which I think is the thing it's best at, is that it's reasonably fast and reasonably strong. So you don't want to need it for your Trick Room setter, or really won't get to do anything else. So Disruption. Disruption I thought was really strong in Samax's toolkit and also in Mono's, and I think this team suffers in how it can disrupt the game. Follow Me is helpful, but I don't see a single fake out user, and I think fake out's the best move in the entire game, so that disrupting what your opponent wants to do is really effective, especially in this format. So I think opponents will be setting up in front of Tom, and there's not really a lot he can do about it except hope that he sets up faster. So I just don't really see a ton of use for Shedinja. If it didn't share weaknesses with everything else, then you might be able to catch people by surprise and they can't hit it. But there's other fire weaknesses, other rock weaknesses here. I don't see a ton of use for Eevee. Every team is going to, for the most part, have some duds. Drafting is incredibly hard as is, and when you cut off half of your available options but keep just as many coaches, it's going to be hard. But I think this is true for more of this team's mons than others. I just don't see Sceptile doing too much. I guess I like that it's fast and it's a grass type, but Flareon. So I'm not going to criticize individual mons. Sometimes I just have biases against them, but I will say the lack of speed control, the lack of type synergy with some really abusable weak points to rock, to ground, and to ice. And the limited number of disruption tools like Fake Out and Speed Control. I'm just going to say speed control, speed control, speed control. It's the main thing I've learned is going first is really, really important in this game. I think it will be hard for this team to go first, and it will be hard for this team to outpace with anything except Azumarill and Zapdos. Next, we have Poppin's team. Last time I did VBL-S power rankings, I ranked Poppin's team second, and so there's significantly less pressure on you this time around. I do think this is one of the weaker teams, unfortunately, but there's plenty to work with. There's plenty of options here. It just depends on how well they can be used. Poppin's already convinced me of two mons that I had no idea what they could do, but I think they're going to be really effective on this team. Jumpluff. Jumpluff has 110 speed, which is quite fast here, and it has Rage Powder and Sleep Powder, so it's Tangrowth without the good stats. No, but it also has Cotton Spore. Cotton Spore is a more complicated version of Tailwind. It's effectively cutting your opponent's speed in half so that you're twice as fast, which means off a fast mon like Jumpluff, he can get this mid-speed team, which is basically the whole team, right, is in the middle speed area. He can get them going first with the support of Jumpluff. There's also a quality Trick Room setter here. Hypno is quite bulky, and it has Inner Focus, so you cannot fake it out, but that's an excellent special defense stat. So you will be able to set Trick Room sometimes, and so against fast, aggressive teams, your mid-speeders can do just fine by setting Trick Room. There are some really quality mons here that I've drafted that I can vouch for. Entei, wonderful overall Pokemon. Gastrodon as well, and they have synergy, right? Entei is protected from water moves from Gastrodon. There is a little bit of redundancy here in that there's two water types and two grass types. Empoleon, you don't want to have Empoleon's attacks redirected into Gastrodon, and so it does create some similar weak points here, like Bug, as it turns out. But the main, I want to talk about the overall team conception, which is these bulky, versatile, reliable mons, but just too many of them, right? Relative to the aggressive potential that I have said is really, really important in this game. You don't need to always go aggro turn one, but you need to at least threaten to, otherwise your opponent can do their plan turn one with no fear. Entei is the highest attack stat we have here at 115, with the exception of Ursaring. We'll talk about Ursaring. But Rotom and Empoleon, the only high special attacking stats. So it's a team that doesn't threaten any Okos, and it doesn't threaten to outspeed a lot of teams that have something faster than Jumpluff. So the main exception, the only mon that's really, really taking Okos is Ursaring with the 130 attack stat. It's probably not doing so turn one because it wants to wait and get its Guts boost, which gives it another 50%. And so Facade, Burn boosted, Guts boosted, super strong. Ursaring becomes a KO button, and that's like how Poppin likes to build. He likes to build around his super strong attackers. I just think he only has one, and the problem with Ursaring is that 55 is not going to win a fast mode matchup. if you Cotton Sport, it's something, but if they trade speed control with you, it's still going to look pretty shaky on getting Ursaring to go first. And in the Trick Room matchup, 55 is not really slow enough to win the Trick Room matchups. Most teams will be able to outflank you on the slow end. So it's a little tough. I do not know how Ursaring is going to get to go reliably first, but if it can, it's going to really be great on this team. Maybe Poppin's plan is to just play the defense game. Umbreon snarls, Entei gets burns, Rotom he gives you burns, and then by the time Ursaring comes in, he's not going first, but you can't KO it because you're not doing a lot of damage. That sounds like a good option. Maybe that will work for this team. But yeah, these mid-speed team without the huge power or speed, it's just gonna struggle. These mons are so good. I really like them, but Umbreon I don't like, but I will acknowledge is quite effective. It's just, how do you get to use them if you're just kind of losing slowly? That's what I felt like on my Entei team, in that I'm doing good damage, they're just doing a little bit more damage, and it's kind of tricky. So if this team can set up effectively, if like Gastrodon can become unkillable, Umbreon can become unkillable. I really like the Gastrodon, like Acid Armor leftovers set. If you win defensively good, I think defensive win cons are a little tougher to lean on because you become taunt bait, right? You need, if you can't set up your defensive win con, then you don't have one. Then it's vulnerable to the opponents setting up their own offensive win con. If they can Swords Dance, that's going to scale as fast as anything that Umbreon and Gastrodon can do. So it's just, I think one or two, if you can find just a fast KO button or something at least that it threatens to do so, and maybe trade out Chimecho, maybe Rotom goes because you've covered what it does with other mons on your team, maybe Empoleon. I mean, these are good mons. I really do like the mons here. I just think there needs to be a little bit of balance between the durability, which is good here, and the aggro game, which is cannot be avoided. It's very important in this game. Next is my team. I like my team. I think it's fine, and it has a lot of potential for mischief, but I can't responsibly put it above the other 12 teams. I think we have some very strong drafters here. My power level is constrained by my theme this time around. I am Team Fuchsia. I only allowed myself to take mons of a particular kind of reddish, purplish, pinkish hue, or at least feature that color on their design. I did use shinies, right? This is shiny Rampardo. Rampardos has that coloring, and shiny Farfetch has that pleasing coral. But I had to rely on kind of the fifth best of a lot of things because that was the one that was fuchsia colored. So this team is highly mischievous, has a ton of speed control options. I grabbed 3 fake out users as my first 3 picks. I have not only 3 to fake out, but Sableye Quash, make sure anything next to Sableye can go first. Suicune Tailwind, very reliable for speed. Mr. Mime Icy Wind, 2 Trick Room setters, which are not that reliable, but they're threatening to do other things, so you might not be able to stop the Trick Room. So all of that speed control, but the problem is this team is just underpowered, right? The numbers are not looking good. My offensive numbers, not that impressive with the exception of Rampardos. On the special side as well. Defensive numbers, not a lot, not anything special with the exception of Suicune. And speed is, I mean, there's some speedy options. It's going to get outsped, it's going to get undersped. The numbers are not on my side. I will need to be creative and out-surprise my opponents if I'm going to get more than a couple of wins this season. But this team should be a lot of fun. It should make for good content, right? It's wacky, nothing out-devils the devilish Sableye. So we'll see. But I won't go too far into my weaknesses because why would I do that for y'all, for my opponents? Do your own research. Next is Casey and the Californian Colossals. Casey took a break from VBL-S last season, but I know he's been practicing, right? He's getting very good, and I think some of his level ups are reflected in this team, which has some really good ideas. It's just there's like a part that I like and a part that I don't like, or two parts that I like that don't go too well together. You'll see. But Weavile is a god, super fast, super strong. I said when I had Weavile last season, all you need to do is reduce the power level a little bit, and Weavile becomes incredibly threatening because it can take OKOs in this format. It can outspeed entire teams very easily. It's the fastest fake out without boosts, and it's really, really effective here, especially when you give it rain. So you're dealing with its fire weakness. That's a little bit of help by drafting the classic rain mode, Polytoad Kingdra. That's synergy. That's obvious synergy. And Lucario also does well in rain because it's no longer weak to fire when it's raining. Weavile Lucario together is a beat-up justified combination, so you can get Lucario with triple attack, and then it's still pretty fast, so it might be able to take the OKOs before the opponent gets going. So these four I really love. They're the top four on the team, so it makes sense that they're stronger, but the rest of the team doesn't really work with them, at least not in ways that I can identify. The team doesn't benefit that much from rain, with the exception of Weavile and Lucario. Rapidash does not want to be in rain, right? It's going to die to any water move in rain. Rhydon really doesn't want to be in rain, right? 4 times weak to water. So it can lightning rod away electric attacks from Polytoad, but like you're just going to kill both of them with grass moves. I don't really think that pairing works. And Rhydon being slow in a mode that's mainly trying to go fast, I don't think is going to work very well. It's going to get one shot by a Scald before it gets to move. Now, Trick Room. We have a Trick Room mode here. We have Stantler. Do we have any other Trick Room setters? Yes, also Xatu. So Stantler with Intimidate is fairly bulky, and it's bulky with the effect of Intimidate, and so it can set the Trick Room sometimes, only one weak to fighting. Does this team take advantage of Trick Room? So you want to run a Stantler into Rhydon team with Galarian Weezing. Is that it? Like, that's not a lot of Trick Room, because Metapod and Shuckle are not Pokemon. I do not recognize their Pokemon. They're bugs, and they're bad bugs at that. I mean, Shuckle obviously has Mischief, but I don't see the Chansey anywhere, so I'm going to ignore the Shuckle for now. And so, yeah, I think another Trick Room abuser would be pretty nice, something that at least doesn't mind the rain, so that you can have Polytoad with the option of going Trick Room if things get out of control, if the opponent's going faster than you. I will say that the tools to control the game are the other thing I really do like about this team. Weezing with Neutralizing Gas shuts down any opposing Pokemon that relies on its ability, right? Weather-related abilities, Prankster, speed-related abilities, like a lot of Mons are just not able to function until Weezing is taken down, and Weezing's pretty bulky, so that might actually be a problem with Stantler Intimidate, for example. So we have Control, and we have 4 great Rain Mons, but we have just in general a team that really doesn't like rain and just not quite enough depth that it can run a good 6-man squad without rain. I mean, you can, it's just how compelling are Rapidash and Rhydon, Lucario and Weavile if the opponent's setting Sun? That's a problem, Lucario and Sun and Weavile. Not a lot of bulk in Lucario. I don't think it really stands on its own. It just is an occasional win con, an occasional revenge KO, but the weaknesses to rock and ground are the last thing that I think is going to limit this team's potential. Obviously, I talked about the weakness to water, which is not good for a rain team, but rock and ground. You've covered a lot of the team right there. And is particularly the entire fast mode with rocks, fast Scarf Rock Slide, going to be a problem for this team. That's where I would say, if there are some Mons, there aren't a lot of Mons left, and drafting is incredibly hard as is before you take half the Mons away. But if you can find a new Trick Room abuser, if you can find a Mon that doesn't mind the rain or that beats water types. Beating water types is very important. There are a lot of good ones, and I don't see a grass or electric type on this team. So I see 0 ways to beat water, but a lot of things that get beat by water. So build out this rain mode a little bit stronger, or don't build out the rain mode, but have a little bit more depth to beating opposing water types and winning without rain. So one or the other, but this team has plenty of potential. I do like me some Weezing and Weavile. Okay, Tay. It's always dangerous ranking Tay's team on the lower side because he's one of the most consistently successful VBL coaches, but we are not ranking the coach, we're ranking the team, and the team is weird. there could be things I'm missing. There probably are some things I'm missing, but I think it's pretty good. I don't quite understand how some of the tools come together. I will start with what's undoubtedly a big strength of this team, which is speed, natural speed and speed control. Aerodactyl 130 base speed, gifts tailwind to everybody else. So for all these mid speeders to go first. Arcanine, really, really durable, doesn't need the speed control, but if it's going first, even better. We have 2 fake out users in Pikachu and Hitmonlee, and they're pretty fast, so they'll beat opposing fake outs sometimes. And then they can provide the cover for Aerodactyl to set Tailwind, Slowking to set Trick Room, though these are not very Trick Room compatible mons, but it's something you could do. So going from speed into like general momentum is that this team has a fair amount of tools to win the turns with the fake out, win with redirection. Clefairy is the defense mon because it not only redirects attacks, but it has Friend Guard to reduce allies' damage if they're using spread moves or something. The problem is these frail Pokemon like Pikachu, Hitmonlee, Linoone. Pikachu is going to get OHKO'd by an Earthquake through redirection and through Friend Guard. It's just that frail. Aerodactyl is kind of frail. It's going to really struggle. Like it'll set Tailwind, but then immediately die. It's worth it from the team's perspective, but these are just not a lot of sweepers here. I don't see where the setup comes from. I do see the Belly Drum Linoone. That's kind of its one gimmick that is quite strong. It's not just, calling it a gimmick is not to say that it's not strong, but it's the one thing it does is boost its self-power and then use extreme speed to try to OHKO things. But I think there are mons out there that survive the Linoone E-Speed, and there are mons that can KO Linoone through Friend Guard with just a couple of Rock Slides or a couple of spread moves because it's not bulky enough. I don't like setup on mons that are going to die while they're trying to set up. And so the main things that I see for a good setup that's reliable is Slowking, has Nasty Plot, and Calm Mind. Arcanine, it's not really setup, but like Snarl and Will-O-Wisp can really give your mon space to just outpace, right? So if they're not doing a lot, then Nidoqueen, Sheer Force, Life Orb boosted attacks are pretty good. I really like the Abomasnow here in general, despite there's not a lot of Hail synergy, there's no Slush Rush mon in this format, but there's no Snow Cloak would have been nice or something, but Abomasnow by itself can do Scarf Blizzards, very, very effective, and Scarf Icy Wind for speed control. I don't think you necessarily need those aspects of Abomasnow, so maybe it just sets Aurora Veil, and I don't know, because this team's already fast, so I guess just the Blizzards are pretty good, and something to beat the water types that threaten Arcanine, Nidoqueen, and Aerodactyl. That is one weakness of this team, is water. This is what gives me pause, and what keeps me from putting this in the top half of teams is just the inability to set up your setup sweepers because they just don't have the durability. Maybe this team seeks more of a defensive win con with the Arcanine, Intimidate, Snarl, and maybe it just uses a choice band, right? This team has a lot of tools. I hope I mentioned adequately up front all the things I like about this team, that there is a lot of opportunity for creativity with mons with a lot of different tools. So if Tay uses his items very effectively, and his movesets effectively, then he'll do fine with this team. It's just, is there something else we can reliably take advantage of Clefairy with? Clefairy, Slowking, and then what? Where's the Trick Room abuse? Is Spiritomb the guy? 92? I don't know. I've never really seen Spiritomb do much. But I'm really curious to see how this team does, because there's a lot of stuff and I don't get it, which is not to say that it's not good. Okay, number 10 was Samex, who we talked about up front. So the last team in this video to talk about is Sukaba. Sukaba is the first rookie we've talked about to VBL-S. Most are returning coaches, but he's also new to draft leagues in general. So he definitely knows his mons. He knows his BDSP format because he grabbed right off the start 7 fantastic, very scary Pokemon. Gengar, very strong, pretty fast. Garchomp, extremely strong, very fast. Togekiss, the best redirector in the format. Milotic, very bulky, and Butterfree is a Swiss Army knife with Tailwind, Sleep Powder, and Rage Powder. No Mon gets all three of those. But this is where the team struggles, is that it literally has 7 Pokemon. Like, in this format where there's not a lot of great stuff to go around, some people have 9 usable Mons and 2 pretty niche. Some people have 10, but this is literally, these are 1-point Mons that have no threat to do anything. You can completely delete them from your team builder. And then Ditto, while you can't bring setup quite as easily against Ditto because he might copy your setup, it's not a Pokemon, as in it's not something that you specifically prep for. So we just delete that. And then we're talking about 7 Pokemon. This was Tsukaba's strategy, as he explained to us, because he doesn't know Draft League and he doesn't know these like niche low tiers and middle tiers that have value. He just wanted to pick Mons that he knew. He knew they're strong, and it totally makes sense as a first-time Draft League strategy. I don't know if 7 Mons can really ever win against 10 Mons, even if the average power level is lower, just because of team building and options and having to respect options. It's very easy to build optimally against this team. In particular, the shared weaknesses. If you're going to have only 7 Mons, they can't have a lot of shared weaknesses, but that's a lot of electric weakness right there. Only protected by Garchomp. We have double Rock Slide weaknesses, both your redirectors. So I'm Rock Sliding to get around the redirection, and I'm KOing your redirector for free. So those shared weaknesses, when you only have 7 Mons, you couldn't find a Flying Resist. You couldn't find a Grass or Electric type, so there's very little to beat opposing waters. There's no Psychic Resist, because again, Poochyena is not a Pokemon. So these shared weaknesses are really going to make it easy to prep optimally for the team and very hard for this team to achieve its potential. Now, will this team get to overrun and overwhelm some teams? Yes, because these Pokemon are amazing. Like, I can't stress it enough how good these Pokemon are for the most part, but it's together, the whole is not significantly greater than the sum of its parts here. And in fact, it exposes what teams are going to do to this. I guess you can bring Machamp Wide Guard to deal with all the Rock Slides. I do recommend you do that, but something has to change. I think Butterfree is mostly redundant with Togekiss. I know it has its own tools, but it wants to redirect electric attacks away from these 3, but then it kills itself in the process. It wants to redirect rock moves, but it's going to die in the process. It wants to redirect flying moves, but it's going to die in the process. So it's just not doing much here. If you can find a grass type, find an electric type, I guess an electric type before grass, because you don't want to be weak to flying. So is there an electric type out there? I wonder. But and the other thing I will say to Tsukaba is when you have such amazing power, all you got to do is just be unpredictable, right? The main thing that threatens this team is the fact that people mostly know what's coming every week, so you just need to be unpredictable with what that Mon's doing. Scarf Togekiss. Why not? Why not? Garchomp with some weird coverage moves. I don't know. I don't know these Pokemon as well as you do, but Gengar has a ton of utility moves. We'll see its face pop up with Will-O-Wisp. That can be pretty helpful. Taunt, Sucker Punch. Use these Mons creatively, and you do stand a chance. Use these Mons in a typical way. Our coaches are too good to fight a 7-Mon roster. This is weird because I'm not ranking the coaches, but I think in a league not quite as competitive as VBL, this becomes a better team, right? Because they can't target the weak points quite as well. But look out for the flying moves and the rock moves and the electric moves. I'm bringing all of them when I play this season, but it should be a fun match. With that, I've analyzed 8 teams. Given criticism, hopefully constructively. If I was ever sounding mean, then I apologize. But this is all to try to solve this incredibly hard and complicated game that we play, or to try to at least give useful advice. But share comments. I'm sure I missed some things. I just wanted to talk for less than 5 minutes on each team. But leave comments in general would be appreciated. I'm excited for the season. Hope y'all are excited for the season. Top 8 coming soon.